Are Roman Catholics Christians? Is there a slight chance that the Roman Catholic Church is really not Christian? Think of the horrifying consequences. If it is not, then billions of people have been deceived. If it is not, then the ecumenical movement is not of God. If it is not, then the Roman Catholic charismatic movement is not of God. If it is not, then Roman Catholics are headed for spiritual disaster. There is only one way to check it out. It is with the holy inspired Word of God, the Bible. Let's study Helen's life as a devout Roman Catholic. Helen's first sacrament is the sacrament of baptism. The Roman Catholic institution says it is one of the 7 channels of grace through which Helen hopes to be saved. Helen cannot be exposed to Jesus, the Blessed Sacrament, the way for God, because she is under the influence of evil spirits. The priest exorcises the demons by anointing Helen with oil and putting salt in her mouth to preserve her from future influence of evil spirits. Then she is baptized with water. At this point she is supposedly cleansed of original sin, made a child of God and an heir of heaven provided she dies in grace. She is quote-unquote born again and at that moment becomes a member of the Roman Catholic Church and is subject to its laws. The Bible says baptism is undergone by believers in Christ to show their identification with Him in His death, burial, and resurrection. Then they that gladly received His word were baptized. Helen is now a citizen of 2 countries. Helen has 2 flags, 2 presidents, 2 constitutions, and 2 loyalties. The Vatican is a government with its own money, Secretary of State, and ambassadors, and is a recognized nation, just like Germany, France, etc. If Helen is a good Catholic, her first loyalty will be to the Vatican. Note, the Pope has 2 powers. He is the chief of a political state and a religious leader. By this sacrament, sins committed after baptism are forgiven through absolution by the priest. To receive the sacrament of penance worthily, a person must examine his conscience, be sorry for his sins, propose firmly not to sin again, confess his sins to the priest, and perform the penance the priest gives him. In future confessions, Helen must tell every sin she committed since her last confession. Roman Catholicism replaces repentance with the sacrifice of penance. Who does the Bible instruct believers to go to when they sin? My little children, these things write I unto you, that ye sin not. And if any man sin, we have an advocate, someone who pleads your case, with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous, and He is the propitiation, which means God was satisfied with Christ's perfect sacrifice, for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world. Little Helen is growing up, and it is time for her to go to confession. My child, you must say 5 Hail Marys. Did the idea of the confessional come from the Vatican? No. It originated way back in ancient Babylon, where they worshipped the sun god Baal. It was part of an occult religious system. Forgive me, for I have sinned. After the great flood, Noah's offspring built the city of Babylon. It became the religious center of the world. Here, the confessional was first used to find out what was going on and to control and blackmail. The confessional is not found in the Word of God, the Bible. It is one of man's inventions. Did you ever wonder where the priests come from? The term priest was taken from the Jewish religion along with the altar, incense, etc. The Bible carefully instructs us how to run a church. It talks about pastors, deacons, etc., but never a priest. What about nuns? What about monks? Popes? The Bible never mentions nuns, monks, or popes. This system, along with the statues, candles, and religious costumes was created by the Roman Catholic Church to impress its followers. The people love it, but only their leaders really understand the religious phraseology and the psychology used to control their nearly 1 billion members. Helen is about to take Holy Communion. Doesn't that sound Christian? Let's see what's really behind the communion as it is practiced in the Roman Catholic churches. In ancient Babylon, they worshipped the sun god, Baal. Then this religion moved into Egypt using different names. On the altars of Egypt were sun-shaped wafers made of unleavened bread. These wafers were consecrated by the Egyptian priests, and supposedly they magically became the flesh of the sun god Osiris. This is called transubstantiation. Then they ate their god, a type of Eucharist. Let's watch Helen take communion. See if it's Christian according to the Bible. Helen believes she is about to receive Jesus Christ in the sacrament of the Holy Eucharist. This is the host or wafer that will, after it is blessed, supposedly become the Holy Eucharist. It is disc-shaped like the sun. In the offertory, the priest offers the water and wine. Then comes the preface, a prayer of praise, followed by Sanctus, a prayer of joy, a cry of welcome for the Lord who will enter the wafer. Roman Catholics believe it actually becomes the blood, body, and soul and divinity of Christ, and it must be worshipped as God. Then comes the consecration. This is the highlight of the Mass. This is when the wafer becomes God. The wine is also consecrated, supposedly becoming the actual blood of Jesus. Let's go back to Helen's first Holy Communion. She must be old enough to know the difference between the consecrated host, wafer, and ordinary bread. The priest with his magical powers turns the wafer into the Lord Jesus himself, transubstantiation. Roman Catholics believe the priest is so powerful he can pull Christ out of heaven, put him on the cross, and sacrifice him again during the Mass. In Egypt, the IHS stood for their gods, Isis, Horus, and Seb. The Holy Eucharist is placed in the center of a sunburst design called the monstrance. Roman Catholics must bow down and worship the little wafer as God, or else. Who dreamed this up? The Egyptians called it Osiris, long before the popes called it Jesus. Doesn't this information upset you? It should, beloved. Around 1563, the Catholic Church created horrible laws at the Council of Trent that made it a death sentence for anyone who said the bread and wine used in their Holy Communion were only symbolic. This law was death to Bible-believing Christians. Canon 1. If anyone denies that in the sacrament of the Most Holy Eucharist are contained truly, really, and substantially the body and blood together with the soul and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ, and consequently the whole Christ, but says that he is in it only as a sign, or figure, or force, let him be anathema, damned as a heretic. Still in effect today? Yes. All the popes during the Vatican Council and since have accepted the ratification of the entire council on this decree. Is this the actual blood and body of Jesus Christ? No, it's symbolic. Burn this heretic too. All this history has been covered up. I'm coming home, Lord. Multitudes died on racks and were tortured in every way imaginable because they defied the Council of Trent. It could happen again. This totally violates Scripture. Vengeance belongeth unto me, I will recompense, saith the Lord. And the Lord Jesus is very angry with the Vatican. When Helen takes the wafer God during Holy Communion, she must believe she is eating the Creator of the universe. she can now tell everybody she has received Jesus as her Savior. Protestants believe the Lord's Supper is symbolic. Note, if God should drop by accident, the communion patent will catch him. The Bible says, "And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me. After the same manner also he took the cup, when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye, as oft as ye drink it, in remembrance of me. For as often as ye eat this bread and drink this cup, ye do show the Lord's death till he come." In Old Testament days, the Jews sacrificed animals for the sins of Israel. At times it was a continuous sacrifice. It was a sacred and holy thing, and people were afraid to miss it. Then after a while it didn't mean anything to them. But then Christ came from heaven to stop all this by sacrificing himself one time on the cross. He settled it forever. When the Lord Jesus died on the cross, he cried, "It is finished." At that instant, the veil in the Jewish temple covering the Holy of Holies was ripped from top to bottom, and God did away with the daily animal sacrifices and the Jewish faith. Christ's sacrifice was perfect, once and for all, never to be repeated. But Satan had other plans. He created a way to bring it back, to continue an ongoing sacrifice in the Roman Catholic Mass. He's got it going day and night, worldwide. It is so subtle and so clever, most people don't see what's going on. Satan wants to show Jesus as continuously dying, Savior or a dead Christ. Christ's finished sacrifice was sufficient. By participating in the Mass, Roman Catholics are calling him a liar. It's an abomination in the eyes of God. What does Jesus think of the Roman Catholic Church? He calls her the great whore, Revelation 17:1, and he orders everyone not to partake of her sins. "Come out from among her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins and of her plagues." The sacrament of confirmation. At the time of confirmation, the bishop lightly slaps little Helen on the cheek, and a tremendous religious experience takes place. Peace be with you. At this point, Helen is filled with the Holy Spirit, just like she was born again when she was baptized. She now becomes a citizen of the church, able to assume responsibilities of that citizenship and to defend her faith against her enemies. Historically, and even today in South America, Northern Ireland, the U.S., and Canada, devout Roman Catholics in serving a Roman Catholic militant church are ready to live, die, and even kill, if necessary, for their church, when under oath by inciting mob action on an enemy. Is Rome a militant church? Very much so. How can Helen possibly be filled with the Holy Spirit? She can't be. She is not even saved. Helen is very religious in a worldly sense. She can now tell Protestants that she is a Christian. She has been born again and has received the Holy Spirit and has received Jesus as her Savior. Since the Vatican II Council, Helen can no longer call the Protestants heretics, but separated brethren. She knows she is not saved, not according to Roman Catholic teachings. She has no assurance of salvation, even through the 6 sacraments. According to the Council of Trent, still in effect, anyone who says they have assurance of salvation is anathema, damned as a heretic. Council of Trent, Session 6. Poor Helen is completely brainwashed. She believes her system is the only way to heaven, and the Pope is the highest, purest form of godliness on this planet. The Roman Catholic institution claims it is infallible and has never lied nor made a mistake. Now, isn't that just a little presumptuous? Remember, the popes claim to be infallible. Look at what they've said. Pope Innocent III, He, the Pope, judges all and is judged by no one. Pope Boniface VIII. We declare, assert, define, and pronounce to be subject to the Roman Pontiff is to every human creature altogether necessary for salvation. Pope Leo XIII. We hold upon this earth the place of God Almighty. Let's see what the Bible says about a man who calls himself God. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God, sitting in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Helen receives the sacrament of matrimony when she marries a baptized Roman Catholic man in lawful marriage, witnessed by a priest. Helen will miss the sacrament of holy orders because it applies only to men who carry out sacred duties, such as bishops, priests, and other ministers of the Roman Catholic Church. At the point of death, Helen receives the sacrament of anointing of the sick, formerly called extreme unction. Helen dies having received 6 of the 7 sacraments. She trusted her church, her priests, was a faithful Roman Catholic, and with all its great power backing Helen, where does she go? To purgatory, of course. Poor Helen, what a dismal future. The sacraments didn't help her. She was betrayed. If she had believed the Bible, she could have been saved because salvation only comes through faith in Christ alone, not in sacraments. Purgatory. Place and state of punishment in which the soul suffers for a time in order to be cleansed before going to heaven. When will Helen get out of purgatory? No one knows. Popes have been in purgatory for centuries. Money must be paid for masses to be said to help Helen get out. This is completely against the teaching of scriptures. Helen was tricked by the ones she trusted, and it cost her her soul. One of Satan's dirtiest tricks is to take Roman Catholics through false hope into the lake of fire. Purgatory is not in the Bible. It was created by the Vatican as one of the greatest sources for money ever invented. Billions of dollars have made the whore rich from poor Roman Catholic survivors who paid to get their loved ones out of purgatory. Is the mother of Jesus in the Bible the same person Roman Catholics call the Queen of Heaven? No. Mary admitted she was a sinner just like us. The Mary that Roman Catholics are taught about used to be called Venus. It started in ancient Babylon when Semiramis became a goddess. Later in other countries she was called Isis, Venus, etc. Note the similarity. Roman Catholic Mary, the Mason Isis. The following is from page 144 of the official handbook of the Legion of Mary, 1975 edition, published by Concilium Legionis Mariae, Dublin, Ireland. That woman, Mary, is the mother alike of the redeemed and of the redeemed. It was first from her veins that the blood was drawn, which now lies scattered cheaply about, but which has ransomed the world. This is total blasphemy against the precious blood of Jesus. This Mary was deliberately exalted to get the eyes of Roman Catholics off Jesus. They made her the co-redeemer and the Queen of Heaven. Are precious Roman Catholics Christians? If they truly believe what their church teaches about how to get to heaven, the answer is no. Millions have been deceived by this false religion. If you've been taught one thing, but the Bible says something else, who's right? God in His Word says, "Let God be true, but every man a liar." The Apostle Paul told the church at Galatia that no matter who came to them bringing any other doctrine, even he himself or an angel, that they were to not believe it. Many Roman Catholics are doing their best to serve God and please Him. That is why this false religious system is so evil. Those trapped within it may be sincerely seeking God, but if they are not serving God according to His Word, they are sincerely wrong. Jesus is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Jesus hates this false religious system. It has blasphemed His holy name, His holy word, and has deceived billions of people. He calls her the mother of abominations, and He has promised to utterly destroy her and all those with her, but He loves you enough to warn you and call you to Himself. Jesus says, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." The Bible says there's only one way to heaven. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me." Amen.